Mickey.
Hey, Bob.
You're back.
I'm back. I'm in Denver.
I can hear the hosannas welling up from the comments section.
I've noticed fewer regrets than that I might have wished for, but it's good
so you've
to be,
been nervously monitoring our comments section?
It's good to be back, Bob.
For signs of despair?
Just people who email me.
Oh, I see.
There have been only 2 of them.
Well, I've heard lots of people asking about... No, that was asking about something else. You're right. I haven't heard anybody complaining about your absence, but still, we're happy to have you back.
Thanks, Bob. That's the kind of guy you are.
I know. So you're at the convention.
I'm at the convention, and if I played my cards right, I'm being photographed in Scorsese-esque relief.
In Scorsese-esque relief.
Sort of like Bob Dylan in that Bob Dylan documentary.
I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
Do you have like a convention backdrop or something?
No. I'm just in my hotel room. But you know what's special about my hotel room, Bob?
Why don't you share that with us?
You know those guys who were arrested with drugs and meth in a hotel room? And they said they were going to assassinate Barack Obama?
Actually, I missed that story. Is it true?
It's a local story, yeah. And guess which hotel they were staying at?
The hotel you're in?
You betcha, but they were on the 6th floor, and I'm on the 5th, so it's like a completely different world down here. I mean, up there...
You've got no connection at all to these guys?
Who knows what's going on up there, man? It's like a drug factory up there, but here on the 5th floor, we're all law-abiding citizens.
Wow.
Actually, there's no police presence at all. I mean, I guess they cleaned out the room, and they're gone. They're not here anymore. But it was a big local story, and now they're downplaying it, saying, they were never a threat. I don't know what. It seems to me anybody with a gun who wants to shoot somebody is a threat. I mean, they might get lucky. So.
And we think they actually had the intention of doing that?
Yes, but they were on speed, and when the cops stopped them, they said, "What are the guns for?" They said, "Oh, we're going to shoot Barack Obama at the stadium."
That's the trouble with doing the speed before the assassination. See, that's why the veterans advise against that.
Well, didn't help Johnny Cash when he shot a man in Reno.
Just to watch him die.
And then he ran to Mexico, but he didn't run fast enough. They caught him.
Did Johnny Cash shoot a guy in Reno? I mean, I thought that was just a lyric in Folsom Prison Blues.
He did in the song. He did in the song. I don't think he did in real life.
Right,
no.
Okay. Well, I thought, exactly. I know the song. I picked up on the illusion, as you may have noticed. But
okay. Anyway, I'm here in Denver with the anxious, worried, troubled, insecure Democrats.
Is that the storyline?
Yeah, I mean, that's even in the New York Times headline today, the word anxious.
They're anxious because they're afraid that Bill Clinton will say something crazy?
They're not worried about Bill Clinton. They're worried about Barack Obama. He picked Joe Biden, and he went down in the polls. He's tied with McCain. He's so far getting no bounce at all. They worry that he's wasted the first night of the convention, and the second night will be a disaster because of the Clintons. So he only has 2 nights to deliver his message, and, that's... I admit that that's true with all conventions I've been to. On the 3rd day, they say it's a disaster, and then the guy pulls it out on the last day, but still. That's
well, the last night was not ostensibly a disaster, just watching it from the comfort of my own home. Of course, you were there.
Well, no, but I wasn't in the hall, so what did you think from the comfort of your own home?
Here's what I thought. I thought, first of all, the Teddy Kennedy thing was very solid. Now, you probably managed to be entirely unmoved by that, right?
No, I was moved. I thought it was great. It was also great because it was free of sentimentality and mawkishness. Imagine if John Edwards had delivered that speech. Well, now, this is not about me and my horrible tragedy, which I'm going to milk for every tear it's worth. It's about you. And Kennedy didn't do any of that BS.
John Edwards, I haven't thought about that guy in months, Mickey. It's funny.
He's a non-person.
No, I know. The Kennedy thing was like Willis Reed walking onto the floor of Madison Square Garden in bandages in the 7th game of the 1969 NBA Finals, wouldn't you say? Kind of?
That's more of an East Coast metaphor, but...
Well, anyway, I just thought it was so great. I was afraid you would not find it inspiring.
Well, here's why I thought it was great, okay? I don't think the old... The country is in trouble. People feel uncomfortable about, is the economy going to go to hell? Our income's going to grow inexorably more unequal. What's that going to do to our society? And then there's the whole foreign policy, war, terrorism business. And but the old democratic rhetoric that we used to use to confront just doesn't cut any ice anymore. It's not that it's offensive because it's been sort of cleansed of its paleo-liberal implications, But it just, more resources for this or that, economic justice. Those words are completely meaningless and aren't going to move anybody anymore. Even citing the civil rights era doesn't cut it. They still say it, but it has no bite. They need some substitute rhetoric, or at least a confident look forward to the future. And that's what Kennedy did. He did the essential thing that Obama has to do, which is confidently look forward to the future and say, don't be so distressed. Here's how we're going to make it.
So wait. At least you're telling me you found Kennedy inspiring not because he heroically hobbled onto the floor with a brain tumor, but because he sounded like a neoliberal? No. First, I liked it for both reasons. And the way he was seemed unfocused, and then really got rose to the occasion.
At some point, he started really meaning what he said, and drove it home. That was
the
great.
thing about Kennedy is I think he does mean what he says. He genuinely feels that there's a cause he's serving.
It has nothing to do with being a neoliberal. He's not He's not a neoliberal. He talked about health care. That's what he talked about. That's fine. It's something off in the future that will make life better, that gives the people a reason to vote for the Democrats. That's all I'm saying. It is the sort of thing that none of the other speakers talked about. That's the obvious thing you have to do. I mean, should be like breathing to them. That the free have to focus on the future and be Reagan-esque and confident and say this is what we're going to do and it's all going to be much better and we're going to make it and we're still the greatest country in the world. And Kennedy was the only person who instinctively did it. That's my point. And he didn't do all of it, but at least he did part of it. Health care is about half of the Democratic agenda. So, and he didn't do a laundry list of special interest groups and little things he was going to do.
But of course it wasn't the keynote speech. It wasn't the culminating presidential. Well,
maybe his illness forced brevity, but he could have gone on and on, and he didn't. It was great.
Yeah.
It was a very short speech.
So, but I thought and do you think it had this unifying effect that it's supposed to have theoretically had? Or, of course, he is an Obama partisan, and so I wouldn't think that he would automatically win the Hillary folks over.
Yeah, I didn't think it. No, I thought it was moving, and I don't think unifying the party is as important as winning over swing voters, and I think it had an effect there. So it was a good thing. But what do you think of Michelle?
I thought basically she was very good. First of all, getting the biography out there was important because the Republicans have once again masterfully inverted socioeconomic reality by depicting the two people from the hardscrabble environment as the privileged snobs and depicting the privileged snob as, the hardscrabble middle American. They always do that. It's amazing. Mike Kinsley wrote a good column about this a week or so ago.
Tom Frank wrote a whole book about this.
What's that?
Tom Frank's What's the Matter with Kansas, I think half the book is about this.
Well, no, but I mean about the way the Republicans managed to do this. They picked these people. Imagine Michelle and Obama, given where they really came from, depicting them as the privileged snobs. John McCain, born into the military aristocracy, marries a ridiculously rich woman after, divorcing his first wife, and he's the everyman. It is amazing. And Mike just pointed out they've done this time and again, total reality distortion.
But at some level, it could be true.
Well, it's possible that you could be a snob, yes, and I suspect both McCain and Obama have a little bit of snob in them. But it's just it's theoretically possible, but I don't think it's the case. And it's important that Michelle got out there the fact that she wasn't born with a silver spoon in her mouth. Neither was Barack. That part was good. I thought Craig Robinson was very good, her brother, in the intro. He was solid. By the way, he was also a great basketball player in his day.
He wasn't as good as I expected after he seemed like a great guy, but he had a little trouble reading the teleprompter.
A couple of times he got messed up. Look, the guy's not a public speaker. It amazes me.
He is a public speaker.
These people...
All basketball coaches are public speakers. That's all they do.
Well, they are, but you walk out into an environment like that, and I'm amazed that none of those people ever just go out there and start babbling incoherently. These people with zero experience who are thrust on a stage like that.
He was pretty poised, I agree. It's just he I don't know.
Two or three lines he delivered haltingly. Michelle, I thought, was good, solid, likable. I thought my critique would be, I thought it was like, A, about 2% too kind of theatrical and rehearsed, and just 2%, but B, the rehearsal was kind of for the wrong role. In other words, she seemed to be working to deliver the kind of speech that a political leader would deliver, the candidate, whereas that's not the way she's being appraised. She's being appraised as a first lady.
Right.
It was too much of a politician speech. I mean, I thought it was a success. It was way better than nothing. But I have seen her be even more likable, just impromptu, just being the person she actually is. And Wonderment, in her comment section, had a comment to this effect.
No, I agree with that, and that's a critique I heard here, too. The other thing that bothered me, and this is with both Obamas, they have a lily gilding problem, which is they try to make this great achievement of their BS affirmative action jobs, working, for some hospital or his job, community organizing. Those are fine things to do. They're not that big a deal. And to try to say, she headed some BS nonprofit foundation to help kids, do volunteer work or become civic leaders, whatever it was. It sounds great, but they were trying to make more of it than there is, and they don't need to. All they have to do is say the country's going to hell, and I'm a competent guy who's going to broker compromises and solve the problems. They don't have to try to pretend that. Also, all his community organizing solutions failed, I think, by his own admission. So why pretend that he won World War II? It's insane.
Well, it may be partly a reaction to the Republican privilege snob meme that they emphasize that they didn't go work on Wall Street, but I don't know. I don't think that hurts them. I mean, it seems to annoy you. I don't see Americans all over the country reeling in revulsion in their living rooms over that. But I wish she had been just a little more the person she actually is.
Go ahead.
No, that's it.
No, I agree. She needed a little extra more to just charm people to death. And then
what'd you think of the kid scene at the end? There was a lot of raving about that on MSN.
Well, the kids are fantastic, but they were trying to do too much on that scene. They had the kids and the normal American family, and he was. All they needed was him working a blue collar job at the same time or something. They should have done one thing with that. Instead, they tried to do three.
Yeah. Now, I think if you paid close attention, you could see he was fly fishing at the same time. He was casting
he wasn't. It was a gimmick gridlock.
But gimmick gridlock. Also, I thought, first of all, the kids are adorable. I mean, it's so adorable that any minor snafus were compensated for by the adorableness. And it seemed pretty genuine and spontaneous. It was a little awkward when at first he didn't hear his daughter. But I thought it was good.
It had a certain blogging heads quality to it.
Beg your pardon?
It had a certain blogging heads quality to it.
I can't hear you.
Okay, that's what I mean. I thought you were joking, but yes, it had that technological primitive quality.
Yeah, and there's one thing I hate to. Was it my imagination, or did he at one point say he was in St. Louis and the next moment say he was in Kansas City?
Yeah, no, people are making a big deal of it.
So he did do that.
Yeah, he did screw up. But the more you see of him, the more you like him. And they should get him out earlier. They shouldn't save him for the last day. Because people don't know him. They should inundate us with him.
But the tradition is, the guy shows up the last day. What?
There was a tradition that the nominee never appeared
never
the
showed
night
up
before.
at all. Who broke that? Who broke that ice? Do you remember?
Clinton broke that in '92.
What, of never showing up at all?
No. Never showing up before the last day.
But I think there was. Oh, okay. Never mind.
I think FDR broke the first tradition.
Okay. Yeah. Now, what else happened last night? We should say, of course, we're taping this on Tuesday. A bunch of stuff is going to happen tonight, including what? Hillary is going to happen tonight?
Hillary is going to happen tonight, then Bill happens Wednesday.
Okay.
So Obama only gets one day at the end. It's absurd.
Well, 4 days is almost too much, I think. When does Biden speak? Just right before Obama?
They could have a whole day that's Bash McCain Day. I mean,
you would hope.
It seems not the best organized as far as tightly delivering a message goes.
Well, as Will Rogers said, Mickey, can you fill in that blank? As Will Rogers said,
I never met Bob Wright.
He said, I belong to no organized political party. I am a Democrat.
Okay. Didn't you ever go up to New Hampshire and they have these buttons that say, Will Rogers never met John Sununu?
What?
Will Rogers famously said, I never met a man I didn't like. And the buttons say, Will Rogers never met John Sununu.
So what's gonna? Let's see. Okay, so the Clinton. So I'm boldly predicting that Hillary will get rave reviews. I mean, it's not in her interest to screw this reconciliation thing up. So I think she'll do well, and she's a little less of a loose cannon than Bill is these days. I think so. She'll do it right.
Yeah. No, Bill is the guy who's holding the grudge. He said something today that people are construing as undermining Obama.
Yeah, I didn't comprehend what it was. This story by Sam Youngman in The Hill failed to make it clear what he was even talking about and why it was supposed to be a slap at Barack Obama.
It's like if you have somebody you agree with 100%, he's not going to do anything, or somebody you agree with 50% and he's going to do everything, you vote for the second guy. Which makes no sense. It makes no sense you'd vote for the second guy because he's also going to do the 50% of things you disagree with. So you might prefer to vote for the first guy who's not going to do anything. So Clinton's argument made no sense, and it was not clear to me whether he was directing it against Obama or against John McCain.
We can link to this. It's not clear what the context for the remark was at all. But right-wing bloggers are gleefully linking to it, of course.
There's one thing
Sorry, go ahead.
There's one thing I want to talk about, which is this anti-Obama ad about Bill Ayers. We can link to it. It says a 9/11 terrorist attacked the United States, but 20 years ago, 30 years ago, somebody bombed the Capitol, and then it shows a picture of Bill Ayers, and then it says how he was buddies with Barack Obama, and sort of what's Barack Obama doing being buddies with the guy who bombed the Capitol. It's a devastating ad. It doesn't even seem a sleazy ad. You look at it, it's all factual. You go, what the hell? Okay? The only unfairness it is it left out some of the things that Obama has said dissing Ayers. But you don't know that looking at the ad. Looking at the ad on its face, it's just a killer ad. And Obama's response, he's being urged to fight back. His fight back response, which we'll post, is only 80% effective. And I think if you choose to fight back and you're only 80% effective, you've lost. In this exchange, the Republicans won. And I'm for Obama, but if you looked at it as a cold, calculating observer, I just think this ad is going to hurt him.
Yeah, they're clearly, this is a big part of their arsenal. I taped one of these with Hugh Hewitt that hasn't run yet, and he was all over that meme. But it sounds like it is a dishonest ad, even in your estimation. I mean, you're saying it is factually accurate, but it leaves out the fact that Obama has disavowed this stuff, or what?
I don't know the extent. I ran to John Alter, and he claimed that Obama has attacked the reprehensible crime. It's not clear that he hasn't disassociated himself from Ayers. I think that's the part that his response leaves out. It says, Obama, the attack ad ignores the fact that Obama has denounced the bombing. Well, that's fine. Denouncing the bombing is half of it. Do you then go out to dinner with the guy whose bombing you denounced, or or is he one of your close buddies? And that's still a doubt in the voter's mind. And then the ad makes the ridiculous point that Obama was only 8 years old when this crime was committed. Well, who cares? If the guy killed 100,000 people when Obama was 8 years old, Obama should still hold a grudge against him.
Although, as a matter of fact, he killed 0 people, right? But
he killed 0 people, but the people he was associated went on to kill some cops. So.
Okay, so Obama knows a guy who knew some people who killed some cops.
No, he was part of a movement, one wing of which went on to kill people, and they were intending to kill people. They just never managed to pull it off. And then he skated free on a technicality. So he's never been punished for this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like Obama can't say he's paid his debt to society.
Yeah.
He hasn't.
So, but Obama's his actual associations with this guy are like a while ago, right? I mean, he presumably hasn't been hanging out with him during the campaign, right?
With Obama a while ago is not so long ago, He hasn't had a long political career. And the dirty little secret is, Bob, and I brought my props, okay?
What?
The dirty little secret is the reason everybody in Chicago loves Bill Ayers is because his daddy's a big rich lawyer. And his daddy has cleared the moose
deployed?
Yeah, cleared the way back to respectability for the guy in a way that would never happen with an ordinary citizen whose dad wasn't a big rich lawyer.
Wait, you're saying Bill Ayers' dad is so important that people suck up to Bill Ayers?
Yes. No, that they Bill Ayers has pulled strings to get his son back in respectability after trying to blow up the Capitol. It's crazy. It wouldn't happen in any other town. It's a weird.
It wouldn't happen in any
Chicago.
other town. Are you kidding? This is the way America works. Is that privileged people get off light? Doris Kearns Goodwin commits plagiarism, but she's well connected, and everyone forgives her. This is life.
I just think that somehow Chicago is sort of more hermetically sealed, and it's small enough that everybody knows everyone, and big enough that it has some really rich people, and you can get away with things that you couldn't get away with in New York because there would be many, many countervailing voices who would be saying, "Wait, you can't do this."
So you think
Los Angeles is too disorganized to even contemplate this.
So you think Obama has to actually denounce and disassociate himself from Bill Ayers now?
He has to throw him under whatever bus Reverend Wright is
I mean,
under.
there is kind of, we are getting toward denunciation and renunciation fatigue here, right? I mean,
but it's creepy. It bothers me, and I'm for Obama. What's he doing associating with this guy? I mean, I guess to get ahead in Chicago, you have to hang out with Bill Ayers. I don't know.
Well, he could turn on him now. That wouldn't be a problem in theory.
But right, well, that's troubling too. If he climbs his way up the ladder and then throws all the people he used to get ahead, out the window.
Well, that may be part of the concern, is that perception. But so anyway, so what is your analysis of why Obama seems to be in such trouble?
It's without maybe the argument is without Hillary to beat up on, he has no real purpose. I mean, people like the fact that he sort of took on Hillary and he was a better alternative to Hillary. And now that Hillary's not there anymore, his foil isn't there. Also, his rhetoric is very hollow and vague, and he's an unknown. He was wrong on the surge and hasn't really come to grips with how wrong he was on the surge. So people are troubled about what he's going to do in Iraq, although they were untroubled about a month ago. People were very, the celebrity attack has, ham-handed as it was, has sort of taken away his charisma as a strength. People were very upset at the big rally in Germany was obviously not a good PR move in terms of appealing to Americans.
No. I mean, Britain would have been a better venue for that, by the way. Britain is just foreign enough, but not too foreign. I'm not kidding. For Middle America, Britain is like, they're foreigners, but they're, the right kind of foreigners. That would have been fine.
Well, it's weird. That even bothered my mother, who's a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, because she grew up in Germany, and she said that's where Hitler used to hold his rallies.
Yeah, no, it was kind of dumb. I mean, the whole idea of emphasizing his rock stardomness is dumb because everybody who likes that is already on board. Everybody they need to get on board is just clearly not sufficiently impressed by the rock stardom thing. So I didn't understand that when I first heard about it. And when I first heard about them doing this stadium thing in Colorado, the talk in the stadium, and this was before the Republicans ran the celebrity ad and really tried to exploit this, I still said, what is that about? It's like showing off. I mean, and also, when people are worried, when some people are worried that you're not kind of normal enough, he's black, he's Muslim, that, just show up in the convention hall like a regular candidate and show them you're a regular guy, okay? Don't freak them out.
I bet if they could call that off, they would.
Oh, God. I mean, plus, I know it hardly ever rains in Colorado this time of year, but wouldn't that be a bummer?
Well, rain would be great. Then they could say, oh, sorry, we're canceling the big rally, we're going back inside.
But, I just think the campaign, the whole... beginning with the Germany thing, it just showed that they weren't. I don't know. I got to blame the campaign. Of course, the Republicans are these masterful inverters of reality, but and I think McCain has these genuine vulnerabilities. I mean, if you look at if you look at the cost of the Iraq War plus the cost of the Bush tax cuts that McCain now supports, I know I've said this before. Any economist would say that contribution to the federal deficit almost any economist, played a non-trivial role in getting us into the economic mess we're in. Has Obama said that? Did I miss it?
He probably has said it, but
he said every moment.
They haven't used the obvious issues they have on their behalf, on their side yet. The Iraq War, the fact we've bred a new generation of terrorists, the economy, what you just said about the cost. So that's one thing they haven't done.
Well, the Iraq War is now ambiguous because of the surge thing, so that's slightly complicated.
It's slightly ambiguous, but I think people still think, and I think you and I both think, it on balance was a mistake to start, even if we've managed to.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, but Anyway, I've lost my thought.
Well,
so go ahead.
Well, the question is, why is the guy in such deep trouble? Well, what about the Biden pick per se? Did you? I was surprisingly not disappointed in that. I mean, if you had told me at almost any other moment in my life, a presidential candidate you want to win the campaign is about to pick Joe Biden as his running mate, I would have been like, no, go back, stop, But given the alternatives, I actually, when he made the pick, didn't think it was such a crazy idea. What did you think?
Well, I think it's a sort of a dreary choice, and the problem with Biden is he's a very appealing guy who just isn't that smart, and he's like Chuck Hagel.
He's not stupid. He's not stupid.
He's not stupid, but he's incoherent, and he's incapable of communicating in a clear,
incoherent is
sharp
not the word.
way.
He's more articulate than Hagel. Sentence by sentence, he comes out with some perfectly fine long sentences, which I would say Hegel rarely does. But there's something.
There's some undisciplined quality.
There's an undisciplined quality about his rhetoric. We are not the first to point that out.
Yeah, but there's something weird and sort of partial and not thorough about his thinking too.
Well, and at the same time, one thing, when he talks about foreign policy, it does become clear that actually he's thought about it a fair amount, more than Obama, more than McCain. And that, I think, is kind of a virtue.
And I like his foreign policy advisor, Tony Blinken. I mean, he's a good guy. Steve Clemons loves him. But I'd rather have Tony Blinken be vice president than eliminate the middleman.
Yeah, but I mean, Tony Blinken we would compare to Scooter Libby here, and I'd rather have that's an interesting thing. Is a comparison between Cheney and Biden, because on the one hand, it's a Cheney-like pick in the sense that you have a candidate like Bush was in 2000, where people think he's untested, he needs adult supervision. You bring in a veteran like Cheney. Here's the adult supervision. The trouble is, Biden, although a veteran, himself seems like somebody who needs adult supervision.
Very good point. And he's never run anything. Cheney had actually run something. So
that's probably true.
But who are they going to appoint to supervise Biden? That's a very good point. They're going to
maybe Michelle.
They're going to have this great dorm room presidency where they argue back and forth, and allegedly something good is going to come out of it. I'm not that convinced, because I'd rather he was arguing against somebody smarter than Biden.
Well, I think Biden will be a productive influence on foreign policy. Although he's not my ideal, I think he'll be productive there. What I thought was good about it initially, and still kind of think it is, was first of all, the other picks just seemed to me, maybe because I didn't know enough about them, just seemed to me kind of boring. It's like Evan Bayh. I've been hearing that name for centuries, it seems like, and still when I think of him, I just think of some Dan Quayle-like figure, just white bread, boring. And also, he was fervently for the Iraq War, which seems like much more than Biden, and that seems to screw up the mess. Tim Kaine, his position on abortion would have totally foiled any reconciliation attempts involving the Hillaryites, And Sevilis, I didn't know that much about. Apparently, her State of the Union response was a dud. But I guess I feel about Biden the way I feel about watching Phil Mickelson play golf. It's like he may not win, but it's so much fun watching him get into trouble and then trying to get out. It won't be boring.
But he won't be boring. But that's say that because he narrowed the list down to 4 or 5 conventional candidates.
Well, who?
Biden was we've been through this. Zinni.
Zinni would have been interesting. That's an interesting choice.
There's some other generals who would have been interesting, but Zinni was the best of the bunch. Maybe they approached him. He was at one point on some list. I was told, but he says he doesn't want it. So he's an honest guy. Maybe he actually doesn't want it. But they reach outside the box, Bob. These are, I've come to peace with. I've made my peace with Biden. When you look at them as a team, it's not that bad. They seem to have some sort of nice complementarity. And Biden is a patriot, and he's open to bipartisanship. He's just sort of he's a half-baked guy.
Yeah, I think in a way his virtue is very familiar and more or less innocuous seeming, because there is this fear about Obama, where did this guy come from? He's a space alien. Whereas Biden is just kind of the opposite. He's like living room furniture. And I think that part kind of works.
Well, he's pretty darn ambitious, so he's not a guy I would completely trust not to undermine me.
Oh, you're always saying that. But look, it's not in Biden's interest to undermine him, because what you're saying, it would be in Biden's interest now for Obama to lose the election?
No, just when they're in office, Biden says, I told him not to pursue health care that vigorously, or sets himself up not to take the...
We'll worry about that when the time comes. I am gravely worried about the election, and that's what I want to worry about.
The other point, I've remembered my point, Bob.
Excellent.
It's that, and you can guess what my point's about. There are only two possibilities.
Immigration?
Or John Edwards.
Does John Edwards have a love child, Mickey?
No. It's about immigration, Bob.
Uh-huh.
McCain's big vulnerability is one that Obama doesn't seem to be able to take advantage of, which is people don't like his immigration stand. So it's like a 65-35 issue. If you phrase it right, people will reject McCain's obvious approach to immigration, which involves a near simultaneous granting of amnesty and increasing of border security, and people don't like that. They want to do the one before the other. But Obama can't seem to figure out a way, and there must be a way to indicate, to get to McCain's right on immigration, and indicate that you share the concerns of the people who don't like McCain because of that. I went to a panel, and by the way, I've learned the panels here are not crap. I've learned something from everyone I've been to. I just went to one Time panel that seemed completely bogus about the young hotshots, and they had a young hotshot congressman from Alabama, a black guy, who said, look, immigration is not going to be an issue in this election. It's going to be a huge issue in the next off-year congressional election because it's the most powerful issue in the South. You may say it's Mickey Kaus's obsession. Here's a congressman from Alabama saying it's he actually said the most poisonous issue in the South. But he implied that it was going to be the big issue in the next round of elections if President Obama tries to do something, then the Republicans will unite against him and use that as a cudgel to get back into power. And that's why I'm for Obama, because I would like the Republicans to coalesce against it. And then maybe it won't pass. But so it puts the lie to the idea that immigration is not important, and it is a huge McCain vulnerability that will go unexploited. It's as if McCain had a love child and the press wasn't reporting it. It's worse than a love child. It's an unpopular position on a major issue.
I don't know. It seems to me, first of all, it should have, in theory, been a much bigger vulnerability for McCain in the nominating process than in the general election, right? And he got the nomination.
Yeah, he got in a four-man race. He won with 35% of the vote, and after nominally changing his position.
And B, if you're advising that Obama exploit this opening to the right, right, as things stand, Obama has a chance of getting most of the Hispanic vote. I don't know, 60, 65%, you tell me, but certainly he would have to abandon that hope if he did what you're advising, right?
Well, his standard way of doing it, which he tried in the debates, is to, and this is the way he teaches his class too, is to rhetorically indicate that he understands the other side of the argument. And he's done that on immigration. He said, I understand that immigration is not about hatred of foreigners. There are real worries about its effects on wage levels, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? There must be something he can work there that sends a message. There's a real worry about losing control of our sovereignty. There's a real something that implies he at least understands the concerns of the other side. And that might be enough, given McCain's record, to at least break away some of his voters. It's obviously delicate. He has to do it in a way that doesn't alienate Latinos. But that's why they pay him the big bucks, to do that sort of thing. And I think he can do it. I think the Democrats are just so skittish, and the leadership all wants comprehensive immigration reform. That's the problem. So they don't want to, they don't want to understand the other arguments. They want to pretend the other side is racist.
I don't know. It sounds like a pretty small little needle hole to thread there, but I don't know. It also just seems to me there's so many just kind of fundamental things Obama's got to spend his time. He's got to, deal with this privileged snob meme, and there are just major vulnerabilities of McCain's that he needs to exploit, especially on the economic front. I think Iraq's a little more complicated, but I do think you could depict McCain as generally crazy on the foreign policy front, although that's complicated by the fact that, Obama, in trying to look sufficiently hawkish for the American people, does a certain amount of Me Tooism. an emulation of McCain on foreign policy.
I don't think McCain's position on Georgia is not popular.
What is his position on Georgia?
We're all Georgians now. It's a visceral, reaction. You can't do that. Russia, it's sort of being bellicose and threatening without any, bullets in your gun. There's nothing we can do about it.
But who's that unpopular among? I mean, that's not a big Middle American issue. Who's that?
I think Middle America is worried that if we elect McCain, he's going to start 2, 3, 4 more wars.
Well, I hope so. But I mean, look, I would love to hear.
If Obama can't make that point, he has no business being president. I mean, that's like an obvious anti-McCain point to make.
Well, I would personally like to see a radical critique in the context of this whole Georgia thing of what our foreign policy has been. But there are problems. First of all, it would involve asking the question of what the hell were we doing trying to bring Georgia into NATO when it's almost impossible to honor your defense commitments to that particular country. It's a dinky country that doesn't matter. What the hell were we thinking? Problem with that is Obama was for it. Clinton was presumably for it. In fact, this whole push NATO to the borders of Russia campaign started during the Clinton administration. So I think there's I use the word radical. I think there's a radical critique of foreign policy that could actually hit home because it's just like, don't buy needless trouble. American interests come first. I would think that could resonate. The trouble is that policy elites on both the Democratic and Republican Party are invested in these stupid policies.
Yeah, I agree, but you're like David Brooks asking for grand intellectual coherent alternative worldviews. You don't need that. Obama just has to get elected, and you don't need a grand foreign policy worldview if you have an unpopular war to run on.
So what should he say?
They started this unpopular war, and the same people, especially the McCain, even more than Bush, is going to start 2 and 3 more wars, and we have to stop being so bellicose.
Well,
and have a period where we let things calm down for a while.
I think
that's not a coherent policy, but it's a winning election strategy.
I think I think that could be the foundation for a good talking point, and he just needs to flesh out the details a little in the context of Georgia. I mean, Obama needs to make a clear distinction between him and McCain on Georgia somehow, or in the context of Russia in general. But it's tricky because it's so easy to kind of play because he's fighting the unpatriotic meme, right? And so do you want to put yourself in a position where you can be depicted as failing to stand up to the evil Soviet Empire?
America was founded on the basis of avoiding excessive foreign entanglements. I mean, that's not an un-American position. It's not an unpatriotic position. It's not an unpopular position, especially after you've just fought a bloody and ill-advised war. And when McCain has the personality that people will viscerally think might start more wars. Again, if Obama can't do that, it's just not that difficult. If he can't do that, he's just not a good enough politician.
Well, I still haven't heard you flesh it out as a message. I mean, what do you say about Georgia? What is the difference between him and McCain?
McCain says we're all Georgians now, and implies he's going to go to war. He might well go to war. I don't believe in blustering, threatening to go to wars we can't win, or even worse, going to war with wars we can't win.
Yeah, no, that would be good. I think John McCain should have a conversation with some people who actually know something about military logistics, and they'll tell you that Georgia is not the place to draw the line.
It's the opposite of speak softly and carry a big stick, isn't it? It's speak loudly and
look, I
not
would love
to
see Obama get that creative, and my big complaint about him is that, his whole, ever since getting the nomination, it's been, if John McCain is here, I'm moving there. I'm moving within 3 inches of him. And I would love to see him step back and just say, this is the difference.
Yeah. But it's people like you who are a problem because you keep urging him to be consistent and coherent. If he reverses field, 3% of the population is going to say, well, but you're a foreign policy advisor. Signed on to the inclusion of Georgia in NATO. Well, you voted for it. Who cares? People want to know what your position is now. And Eisenhower won an election saying, I'm going to go to Korea. That wasn't even a coherent single, policy, let alone a coherent Weltanschauung. But it was enough to win an election. You don't need coherence to win an election.
Well, fine. I mean, I'm just saying that the radical critique I'd like to hear could only be made from someone who had said a year or two ago, wait a second, what are we trying to do here? And the problem you face with the whole Georgia thing is really basically elites on the left and right together have united to depict Russia as, overwhelmingly responsible for this little fiasco, when in fact American policy was just totally muddled time and time again. And Bush, the Russians said to Bush face to face, this is really important to us. This really matters to us. This Georgia thing really matters. When a country with nuclear weapons says that to you, you pay a little attention. And, anyway, it's the landscape is not well prepared for Obama to turn this into a big issue, I think. But look, I'm totally with you. I'd like to see him move in that direction. I'm pessimistic based on his campaign maneuvering so far.
How long does it take to change your mind about something? You say, well, this looks like that was a mistake. I've changed my mind. He's a smart guy. He should be able to change it.
From your lips to his ears, I just don't imagine it is going to happen. Partly because Democrats are so insecure about national security, so worried that they'll be depicted as dubs. But if ever there was a time when you could get some mileage out of sounding like you won't start a stupid war, you'd think this would be it, yes.
I agree. We're in rare and precious agreement.
Well, we should move on to something. I mean, here's my question.
I'm through with my stuff.
What's that?
I have nothing more to discuss. I guess I have one more thing more to discuss. So
I have something to ask you about, though, so go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, I'm old enough to remember a time when things actually happened at political conventions. That is, it wasn't totally scripted. Events were unpredictable. I still remember the 1968 convention, I think it was, the Republican convention when, do you remember this? The Rockefeller forces put this big sign on a building near the convention. I think they put a big block letter out of each of a number of consecutive windows or something, and it said, "Rocky can win," as a message, to people who thought that Nixon had it sewn up. But now, that just almost is never the case. And yet, there seems to be nothing exciting actually happening there, and no reason you would want to watch it there as opposed to watching it on TV. And yet I know a lot of people who, like you, have gone there. So you tell me, Mickey, what are you getting out of physical presence? It can't be anything related to what we're seeing on TV.
It's not. It's worth every minute, because every top politician, Democratic politician in the country is here. You talk to them, you talk to their aides, you talk to other reporters. It's like going to college. You learn a lot.
So who have you talked to?
Who do I talk to?
Who have you talked to? Yeah.
God, I went to a panel where Governor Rendell, my hero, went completely off message and started talking about how the press's behavior toward Obama was shamefully pro-Obama, and they ignored the fact that he wasn't qualified to be commander-in-chief. Oh, and by the way, I'm for Obama. It was bizarre and instructive. I heard these four young up-and-coming politicians, two of which, Cory Booker and this guy from Alabama, whose name I'll put up on the site, were very, very impressive. But most of all, I went to something else that Cory Booker, the mayor of Newark, was at, which was this education forum, where I thought it was going to be another boring education forum. They're going to make vague talk, and they're never going to talk about the big problem, which is the teachers' unions want to squash all reforms, and in order to actually get good reforms, you have to beat back the teachers' unions. When all of a sudden they started attacking the teachers' unions, and these are elected Democratic officials, and 500 Democrats in the audience start cheering the attacks on the teachers' unions. Unprecedented. Would never have happened before.
That made you happy, right?
And made John Alter happy. And he proclaimed it a historic moment, and it may well have been. There are enough parents who have their kids in charter schools that they're a powerful lobby now against it, and they all hate the teachers' unions because the teachers' unions are trying to kill off their schools. And they're not ashamed of being vocal about it, even though the teachers' unions give a lot of money to Democratic candidates. And Cory Booker was fantastic on this, and there was another black elected official named Burt Groff, who was head of the state senate in Colorado, who was terrific, and this Mayor Adrian Fenty from D.C. was terrific, and they were all bashing the unions up and down. And the union president was there, and he seems a little sort of stunned by the whole thing. It was fantastic, and so that's reason enough to come here.
Okay, but these all sound like panel discussion things that I could watch on C-SPAN or on, Fora TV or something.
But you can't go up and talk to them afterwards. You're sitting next to a reporter, and he says, I heard this, and I heard that, and it's
that's
like
what I want to hear about.
It's why people go to conventions. So you meet people, and it's an incredibly efficient way to process an incredible amount of information that comes out later, over the next 2 years. I'm still living off of interviews that Newsweek arranged for us in 1988.
But that's what I want to hear about, Mickey, is the behind-the-scenes networking. Who have you made contact? I want like gossip. I want pickup lines.
I don't think.
What are your pickup lines?
The pickup line is,
say you'd sure look good on Blogging Heads TV, and I could probably arrange that. Is that the approach?
I think it's, honey, you're the change I've been waiting for. It's the great Obama pickup line. But are you a puma or a cougar? How about that?
Mickey.
I'm going to try that one.
Mickey, I'm not sure I know what puma means.
Party unity, my ass. Those are the...
And what does cougar mean in this context? What I think it means, right?
Cougar is just an older woman who goes out with younger men.
Never mind.
Well, it's not a dirty word.
A younger man like you.
It's not a dirty word, Bob.
You're right. I don't know why.
We're new media here.
No, you're right. My mind had leapt several steps forward in the chain of association, well beyond what was actually being said on screen. I'm sorry.
Who have I run into? I don't know. I ran into Jeff Greenfield. Tina Brown was hanging around.
She's starting a hot new website.
She wouldn't say what it was about, though.
You know what I heard from somebody who works there is that she has more than once said, we need cool features, things like Blogging Heads TV.
Well, there you go. She has money behind her. Sell out now.
Yeah, she has, that would be, what's the name of that company? Barry Diller's company?
Yeah, I don't know. I forget.
Yeah.
But, there's,
ICM.
Also, I don't know what it's called, but Ariana Huffington is ubiquitous. There are all sorts of rumors that she wants to sell her company. I don't know if they're true or not.
Well, we're looking for companies to buy, Mickey.
Okay, well, whoever buys her company has more than enough money to buy your company too. So, there's I don't know. I ran into Eric Alterman, had a nice conversation with him, about the Edwards scandal, and sort of we each learned something from each other.
Is there an Edwards scandal, Mickey?
No, nothing of the sort. The Edwards scandal is a good story, so people are talking about it, even though
you've been commendably restrained about that. You haven't brought that up.
Well, he's sort of been banished, so.
Yeah, thanks to you. The only thing I want to make clear about that is the only time, and all the time we talked about this, and all the scoffing I did about that, the only time I ever said, I don't think it's true, I believe, is when I was briefly under the impression that when you said they were claiming Andrew Young was the biological father, I was under the impression you meant the famous Andrew Young. And I pointed out that would be a pretty implausible biological father for a white child. But aside from that, I don't think I ever said this story can't be true. I just said, Mickey, why are you so obsessed with this? And that's actually still an interesting question.
Because I didn't want the guy to be Attorney General. I don't quite know why I didn't want him to be Attorney General. I guess because his policies weren't all that left. I thought that his rhetoric, his sappy rhetoric, over-sentimental rhetoric, lends itself to inevitably to sort of solutions. Well, if these poor people don't have any money, let's just give them money. Where's your compassion? Yeah. So even though he didn't want to just give them money, and his positions were still sort of neoliberal, inevitably if you start succeeding with that kind of rhetoric, it gives the give them money crowd permission to write all sorts of little things into the details and undo the work of welfare reform, Bob.
Do you feel at all bad about the suffering you've caused him and his wife Elizabeth?
Yes.
I'll bet.
But I didn't cause it.
You were trying to. We don't know how to allocate the credit, but God knows you were working on being the number one guy.
Well, the Inquirer did all the heavy work, and it turns out there were other people who were all Democrats who didn't want him to get the nomination and then implode, Bob, which I think you wouldn't want to do either, who are trying to get the press to write about this. This being, for our viewers who don't know what I'm talking about, the John Edwards love child scandal. And the other campaigns knew about it too. They just were reticent to bring it up.
Okay.
So everybody knew about
We're
this.
reluctant to bring it up. I hate to sound exactly like my high school teacher, but you mean reluctant to bring it up.
As opposed to?
I think reticent means like more like shy. And
did I use reticent? That was
yes.
bad. They didn't want to bring it up.
See, reticent sounds like the cross between reluctant and hesitant, and that's why people misuse it in that way.
It's like bemused, which sounds like a halfway between bewildered and amused, but in fact doesn't mean that at all. But it should mean that. It should mean that. Damn it.
Well, we can use our influence to change its meaning, maybe.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm ready to stop, but you
yeah,
probably want to go on and on.
Okay, I'm just wondering if we've missed any bases. I don't have a bunch of viewer comments stored up because usually I take those from our dialogues, but it's been so long since we did one. But next week, when you're at the Republican convention, I will have some from this dialogue. All those hosannas I alluded to about having you back, I'll read some of those, and that will be a quick pick-me-up for you.
Let's stay away from that meme. But it's possible that I'll be so dark in this this picture that people will comment on that.
Okay, well, that would be good to comment on. Do we have any closing predictions about the what's going to happen? I mean, I think Hillary's thing tonight will be good, and then I think Bill's will be good, too. He supposedly, I read one report, he was put out that he was not getting to talk about the economy, but instead was being asked to talk about foreign affairs.
Right, they put him on a foreign affairs date, and, it's weird in theory that, in theory he has to talk about foreign affairs, but in practice he's Bill Clinton, he can say anything he wants, but he was, whining about that. But, Ted Kennedy's Dream Will Never Die speech was constrained by the fact that he was supposed to be talking about defense policy. He still managed to give a speech that nobody thinks has anything to do with defense policy within that box. So it's sort of silly to complain about it. He should just go deliver the speech.
You mean whatever speech he wants to deliver?
Yeah. That's what he's going to do anyway.
Well, we'll see. That's some of the drama that remains. And then, I don't know, I worry about the stadium thing. I think the Republicans, the Obama's closing stadium talk, I think the Republicans have set this up so that it almost cannot succeed in truly spectacular fashion.
And since that's the only thing that can save the convention for him, that implies he's going to have an unsuccessful convention. So if I were going to predict, just as I would have predicted that Chet Edwards would be the vice presidential pick, I would say that both parties will have unsuccessful conventions. It will go through both conventions and will be basically the same place we are now.
I hope so. Do you have a prediction on McCain's vice presidential candidate?
No, I don't.
I mean, I hope that the Republicans will have a bad convention. Okay. So, thanks for this on-the-scene report, Mickey.
Sure, and for lugging the good camera 1,500 miles to Denver or however many
but
miles.
let's face it, you did that out of vanity, Mickey. There's a less flattering camera that would have fit in your toilet articles kit, and
I don't think I'm ready for HD, Bob.
For what?
The high definition. The less fidelity, the better. When it comes to me,
you actually brought the higher fidelity camera. It's just the one that doesn't make you look green.
Okay. Anyway, I hope it works.
Yeah, well, we'll see, and then we'll hear from you at the Republican convention.
Yeah, one of those days, probably about the same time, right? So, we'll see. Let's see how it shakes out.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bob.
See you around.
See ya.